What if I told you that someone was stealing from you? They were stealing your health, your wealth, and what's worse, they were making you liking it and even thinking that it was normal. Well, that's exactly what the flower industry has been doing to you for decades, and we're about to blow the lid off of it. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, I teach you all about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. I teach you how and why to be milling your grains, baking that bread, consuming it on a regular basis, and more. So yes, as I stated, the flour industry has been stealing from you for decades. And if you're anything like me, you probably weren't even aware of it for most of your life. Now you may be thinking, Felicia, this channel is about bread and grains. What in the world does this have to do about oil, and how has the flour industry been stealing it? And I actually sent out an email about this to my email subscribers earlier this week, and unfortunately several of y'all thought that I was talking about oil from Venezuela, which I find very interesting. But anyway, I'm not talking about oil from the ground, I'm talking about oil in your wheat. You may actually know it more as the germ. Now, the germ is the smallest part of the wheat berry by weight, but it is so vitally important. In fact, oil is life. That's how important it is. And we are going to be talking about that today. What happened? How has this been stolen from us? What's the importance of this oil that is in our wheat and what we can do about it? So let's do a little history lesson, shall we? So for thousands of years, humanity has been consuming grains. They are generally probably growing their own wheat, harvesting it, milling it, so on and so forth. And for thousands of years, people always knew that wheat was a whole grain form, and only the wealthy could really afford to sift out flour to make white flour. But for the masses, and they at least knew about it, everyone was consuming and knew about real whole grain wheat. So they knew that when I'm buying bread, I'm getting all of the wheat, and that includes the germ, the bran, and the starch, protein, gluten, however you would like to call that part. So that's how it's been for thousands of years. But unfortunately, only a little over 100 years ago, a switcheroo was made. Over 100 years ago, big steel rolling mills started coming out, and commercial flour mills were now able to make white flour for the masses. And these big commercial millers were now able to take away the oil, take away the bran, and thus give us our fluffy, ultra refined white product, thus resulting in our white bread, white flour. But there was a huge, massive problem with this, and it is the fact that they basically took all the nutrients out of bread. So what had literally been sustaining humanity for thousands of years, grains in every culture have had some sort of grains to sustain them. And wheat is definitely king, especially in our westernized world. And well, they now completely took pretty much all the nutrition out of it. Yep, they stole it from you, but it gets worse than that. The horrible thing about this is at that time, most people didn't think it was a big deal to have white flour. In fact, they celebrated it because white flour was considered something that only the wealthy could afford. And now the poorest people were able to consume this white, light, fluffy bread. But there was a cost to this thievery. When this happened by the 1920s, epidemics were skyrocketing, such as beriberi and pellagra, which are predominantly vitamin B deficiencies. And guess where most of these vitamin Bs are found? You guessed it, in the oil of the wheat. The oil part, for being such a tiny little part of the wheat berry, is so majorly important to our health. What is in the oil of the wheat are things like our B vitamins, but predominantly all of the vitamin E. And so most people are familiar with the bran of the wheat, and that mainly has the fiber and things like that, which are important. But vitamin E is only found in the oil of the wheat berry. And vitamin E, the largest source on the planet, and if any of our food, is actually in wheat germ. That is the #1 source for vitamin E. It blows second place completely out of the water. That is how much it is. And I actually recently did a podcast earlier this week where I specifically talk about bread and fertility, focusing in on this vitamin E. Because here's what vitamin E actually does. Vitamin E is an antioxidant. It's a powerful antioxidant. And antioxidants means that it is protecting your cells. It also gives us immune strength. It is good for our hearts, for our brain and our eye health, and also Skin, ladies, you probably have heard of vitamin E in your cosmetic and skincare products because it's actually very good for our skin. And so where do you think they got the oil to put in those cosmetics? Because y'all, they ain't growing vitamin E. What they're doing, and this is how they're stealing it from you, and this is the worst part of them stealing the oil from you, is they not only stole your oil from the wheat, but then they're repackaging it and selling it back to you in other type of products. And you may have fallen prey to this yourselves, but whenever you run out and you're buying vitamin E as a vitamin because you heard that it's good for these benefits, or maybe you buy skincare that has vitamin E in it, or makeup that has vitamin E in it, specialty nutrition products, dietary supplements, animal feed. They'll feed it to the animals, no problem, but they're gonna make you, the human being, pay a premium to get it back in your diet. So if you're like me, you might find this extremely concerning, the fact that, wait a minute, so they've taken our most nutritious food on the planet, they have stripped out the good stuff out of it. They're now just taking it and feeding it to our animals. Oh, but then they're gonna repackage it and sell it back to us for a premium price. So that's the bad news. But here's the good news, because there actually is something that you can do about it. You can actually just get all of those wonderful nutrients back yourself by milling the wheat at home yourself. And this is why on this channel, I teach all about milling the wheat and also milling it fresh, because, and I get people asking me questions like, can't I just buy, say, whole grain flour or whole grain bread from the store and still get the benefits as if I was to mill the wheat at home? And the simple answer to that is no. Because here's the big thing about the oil specifically, especially things like the vitamin E. Remember how I mentioned it was an antioxidant? That is because antioxidants, basically what they do is they sacrifice themselves to oxygen in order to help us, to help our cells. They are the heroes when it comes to nutrients. And that means that they are one of the first to go whenever that wheat berry is cracked open and exposed to air. In fact, it goes so quickly that within just 24 hours of milling that wheat, 45% of nutrients have been lost. And by day 3, 90% of them, they gone. They have been oxidized out of there. That's why I say it is so crucial to actually be milling the wheat yourself. Even if someone was to mill the wheat for you and you buy the flour, you probably don't know when they milled it. And unless they gave it to you like as soon as they milled it, oxidation is already occurring and you may not be getting the fullest amount of nutrients as possible as if you were to do it yourself at home. Yes, this even includes not purchasing whole grain breads from the store, because even though it says whole grain, it's been sitting on that shelf for probably weeks, days, weeks, who knows how long it's been sitting on that shelf. Oxidation is already occurring. Nutrients have already been lost. This is again why I say you've got to be milling the wheat fresh yourself, baking it fresh, and eating the bread fresh, which you're going to want to do because that is when it's the best anyway, is when it's fresh. Because you can taste the nutrition in real bread. I know the first time I ever had real bread from freshly milled wheat that someone made for us, and I was like, whoa, what is this? This is certainly different. And the flavor you cannot beat. Now, even though grains have been around for thousands of years, thankfully, we do have modern technology that has made it easier than ever today to be milling wheat fresh at home yourself. We have electric grain mills, we have our electric mixers, we have our electric ovens, we even have our electric bread machines. It is easier now than ever before to be doing this yourself at home. So really, there's kind of no excuse. Another advantage of in our modern age is the fact that we have so many sources for wheat berries. And one of my favorite sources for wheat berries, and some of the ones that I actually recommend for the newbies out there, is from 4 Generations Organic Farms, which is the sponsor of today's video. I love 4 Generations Organic Farms. They are my go-to source for organic hard red and hard white wheat berries. And the reason is because they're organic farmers, which I definitely prefer, but they've also been tilling and managing their soil as regenerative farmers. So that means that they are really taking care of their soil to make sure that those wheat berries are as nutrient dense as possible. I've actually been to Four Generations myself. I love the people who work there. I love how they do business there on their farm, and I also just love how they run their farm. And on top of that, they are clean wheat berries that are shipped straight to my house. In fact, they actually include just free shipping no matter what size order you have. I really recommend that you check them out. So be sure to just go to grainsandgrit.com/4generations and use this coupon code here for 10% off your first order. And thanks so much to Four Generations for sponsoring this video. So there you have it, y'all. That's the importance of milling your wheat yourself. It's why I exist. It's why this channel is here, to stress the importance of reclaiming this lost art of home milling, of milling our grains and baking our own bread fresh yourself. Not only are you learning a lost art that we have lost for over 100 years now, but you're also becoming more self-reliant in that you're taking your food back from corporations that really just care about the bottom dollar and not your health. And if you're wanting to actually learn more about the importance of especially vitamin E in regards to fertility and other things, then be sure to check out my podcast, Grains and Grit Unsifted. You can check that out up here. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.